Sadnam. We are Jen and Ramtin from Heart Center Revolution.
Our intention with this podcast is to share the best of Kundalini yoga and conscious living with you so you can live a more heart-centered life. Satnam Revolutionaries, and welcome to episode 51 of the Heart Centered Revolution podcast. Today is all about mindfulness. We talk about what mindfulness really means and how you can use mindfulness to access that special, aligned, present spiritual place off your mat, like when you're going about your business, your day-to-day life. I'm also going to share one of my favorite mindfulness tools that I share with my clients. So that's in there. And then as a very special change, Ramtin's going to lead the pranayam today. He chose Sitali Pranayam, which is a very cooling, calming breathing practice that helps to cool and calm the body and the mind. If you enjoyed this episode, or if you've been enjoying our new sequence of episodes that are out, please don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, and you can also leave us a review. That helps the podcast companies know to share this podcast with other people who are looking for yoga, meditation, and spiritual type stuff. But enjoy our discussion. All right, for today's discussion, we're going to talk about mindfulness. And I'm particularly excited because mindfulness was one of my very first mindful, meditative, spiritual practices. And it kind of unlocked all of the rest of this stuff for me. So I was in Thailand traveling, and I picked up a book by Thich Nhat Hanh about mindfulness from a used bookstore. And I was reading it on vacation, and it quite literally changed my life. This book, I think it was Pieces Every Step, was just a master guide in how to implement mindfulness moment to moment in your life. And that was kind of my first step, like I said, on this path and on this journey. And so we're going to just talk about mindfulness today, about what it is, how you can use it and incorporate it to increase your level of awareness and connection with your day-to-day life. And then at the end, I'm going to share one of my favorite practices of how to bring mindfulness, how to make yourself be mindful in a moment. Well, let's just talk about what being mindful is. So being mindful is just having your awareness and your attention on something in the present moment. So it's being fully present in the present moment. And this is a practice. This is a skill that you can develop over time. And there are ways that you can access this mindfulness. And as you practice them, you can find it easier and easier to be present in the moment most of the time.
Hello and Sadnam, everyone. Mindfulness in its own is a beautiful practice. No matter how you connect with it, no matter what definition or concept of mindfulness you are familiar with and you follow and practice, you can't go wrong with. There are different definitions and different ways of defining mindfulness. There are mindfulness meditations out there. A lot of people associate mindfulness with a certain type of meditation. It could be, but it's not necessarily just a meditation. When we talk about mindfulness, to me, is just the basic definition for mindfulness is to be present. The focusing aspect of our mental practice, the typical translation of mindfulness has to do with focus, especially with the meditation practices. You bring your focus in, and there are techniques such as simply by using in your mind's eye, imagining. One very effective way is your breath, focusing on your breath. So those are the techniques we could use for mindfulness. However, to me, mindfulness is neutralizing the state of your mental activity. And as you do that, you naturally become more aware of the present moment's energy, what is offering you, your environment. And as Thich Nhat Hanh has put it, the miracles of the present moment that you receive as you become mindful. Spending time with your pets, with children, in nature, and what the nature that you are in is offering, the environment is offering to you at that moment. As you neutralize the activity of the brain with your intention, with your mindfulness, then you're able to tap into your heart center. So in essence, mindfulness to me is connecting to your heart, is tapping in, because your heart is unconditional. Your brain is designed to capture and create memories for the past and the future. Again, memories for the past and the future. Even the future imagination is sort of memory. But your heart is always in the present moment. When you're able to neutralize your mindset and tap into your heart center, you become aware of what you were not aware of if you've always been thinking about whatever it is that you're thinking about the past and the future.
That's so incredibly said. It's like through focusing your attention on the present moment on purpose, we can quiet the mind or just kind of tune out of the frequency of the chattering of the mind. And it allows you to hear your heart and to feel your heart and to get that guidance. One of my favorite definitions, because sometimes it is helpful to kind of have a definition of mindfulness, is that it's the act of consciously focusing the mind in the present moment without judgment and without attachment to the moment. And so it's this non-judgmental kind of neutral, just paying attention to the present moment. And as Ramtin said, a lot of meditations kind of include or imply mindfulness. But what I find really powerful and kind of like the cornerstone of how mindfulness can transform your life is when you can start to intentionally become mindful in the moments in your life that you're not meditating. Because meditation kind of has mindfulness built into it, but it's kind of twofold. So if I've kind of lost the habit of a spiritual practice and the idea of implementing like a daily meditation or a whole dedicated practice is overwhelming, then a really good first step is just, can I become more mindful in the moments in my life? So not setting aside time to meditate and practice, but bringing that mindfulness, that presence, that level of awareness to the moments in your life. And then another way I think mindfulness is really key is if you are having a consistent practice and you're really enjoying your meditations and you're getting that higher vibration and that clarity and that neutrality, one of the first ways to start to experience that vibration off the mat outside of your practice, while you're driving your car, when you're having conversations with your partner, while you're at work. Oftentimes the very first step in those moments to kind of tap into that meditative mind, that neutral mind, is to start with mindfulness, become fully present in that moment. And then, as Ramtin's saying, that can tune the chattering mind down and help you access your heart center and your neutral mind and your meditative mind. And so I think no matter where you're at in your spiritual journey or in your practice, there's a really important role that mindfulness can play, particularly because it's something you can do moment to moment to moment as you live your life. It can become a way of living your life versus what we often talk about are practices that you kind of are taking away from your life, not taking away negatively, but you're stepping aside from your day to day to sit on a mat to meditate and those kinds of things. Like you're dedicating time and energy to a practice. Mindfulness, where I feel the real power is when you bring it in to your life moment to moment outside of your spiritual practice.
Yes, beautifully said. So in a way, just the practice of mindfulness could become sort of forced, because when you do something intentionally, try to do it with your focus merely from the place of the mind, if you will. A lot of people, when they meditate and even try to practice mindfulness, as Jen said, as a way of meditation while you're doing your spiritual practice, naturally we want to bring that attention and intention into capturing that moment within with our focus and it clearing the mind and letting go of thoughts. And that's not always easy. For most people, that's an effort in its own. One way of looking at mindfulness, instead of trying to, again, put an effort behind it to become mindful, is letting go, allowing it to come naturally, allow it to happen. But instead of trying to be mindful, try to be open, not even trying, just tap into your heart center and find ways to tap into your heart center instead of working only with the mind. Every aspect of our body is intelligence that has in its own. Every organ, every part, every system in our body has its own level of consciousness. And when they work together, when that consciousness among the channels open up and harmonizes that connection, then that state of neutrality, that state of unconditional level of consciousness becomes more natural. So when we connect ourselves and let go and allow ease to come forth as we connect to our environment, become more aware of the again, as Thich Nhat Hanh mentioned, the miracles of everyday existence, your skin, your breath, your eyes, your ears, water, all the elements that exist. Everything that is in our environment, no matter where you are, you could find everything that's around you, even sometimes synthetic, sometimes more organic and natural. There's an intelligence, that energy that is part of it. And that is, you could see that, you could perceive that, and enjoy that as a form of miracle. And when you do that with, practices of mindfulness, like drinking, whatever you're drinking, smelling it, tasting it, using all your five senses. So you do that with everything that you do, every project, every task, even, some mundane tasks you're not necessarily passionate about. But applying that passion, that energy, that intention of connecting with what you're doing from the heart center brings that sense of mindfulness now into it, instead of efforting yourself to become very focused, reducing distractions. Instead of working it from that aspect and that angle, just connect yourself from the heart center.
No, that would be such a beautiful path to connecting to the moment. And I think as I teach mindfulness to my clients, they find it helpful, and I think it's helpful to almost compare it to mindlessness. So we all have moments of mindlessness, and this is when we're like rejecting or we're suppressing the present moment or we're blocking it out, kind of when we're checked out of the present moment. So if you've ever, driven somewhere to the grocery store and you don't really remember the drive, like you were mindlessly driving, you were in your own head, and our minds are kind of tricky places. They're often replaying things from the past or worrying about the future, and being in the present moment as you do something like drive to the grocery store can make it a more restful, restorative practice versus kind of playing around in your mind. So sometimes it's helpful to understand mindfulness when we think about being mindless and kind of being checked out of the present moment, checked out of our body, and maybe playing around in our mind a little bit.
That's a very important point, how we define, the mindfulness and mindlessness. A lot of people may say, okay, if not to be bombarded by my memory and distractions, I want to be mindless. Become more mindless to actually do what we're talking about, being mindful, tapping into your heart center. So you have to kind of, again, that's why the discussion here, we're talking about redefining, not necessarily redefining, but looking at mindfulness from a different perspective, as well as what mindfulness practice is supposed to be, bringing it together. So as when you do involve yourself in your environment from a different perspective, different level of consciousness, from a place of joy, love, and connectedness and unity, you are letting go of, again, as Jen mentioned, of the memories, of the thoughts, of the past and the future, the worries and fears, all that become neutralized. They don't get dissipated, but they become neutralized. And then there's the practice of mindfulness to neutralize your mind, bring your focus and the mental energy from being negative, positive, protective, proactive to a neutral state. And as you do that, you're able to open up the channels for every system within the body to connect together more organically. And when you do that, you become more connected with your environment. That's one way to sort of look at mindfulness, right? But again, we could practice any mindfulness in any way you like and you desire, and however it connects to you, and you will benefit from it.
Yeah, and that ties so well into, mindfulness, like we were talking about, is a part of any meditation practice you do. So the pranayams we do at the end of every episode, that includes mindfulness. Like we are intentionally connecting with our breath. And so as we do that pranayam at the end of this episode, you're going to get to experience mindfulness in that more meditative context where you're sitting and you're focusing internally. But I want to share a practice that I think is so helpful for us to just it offers us a portal into snapping into the present moment, almost like snapping into a mindful state of mind when you're going about your day-to-day responsibilities. And so what I call this with my clients is a 5 senses check-in. So if you're in a moment and you notice that you're ruminating on something in your mind and you just want to be present because you want to get out of your mind, this is a great tool to use. But what I particularly like this tool for is for when when you have a moment that you're not fully present in, but you really want to enjoy. So if you're in nature, a 5 senses check-in is such a beautiful thing to do. If you're in a family outing, especially as a parent, if you're with kids and, you're always running like the to-do list and not worrying, but just like there's a lot of responsibilities going through your mind, and sometimes it's hard to be fully present and enjoy those moments with your children, or enjoy those moments with your friends, or enjoy those moments with nature, because we get distracted by the chattering of our mind. So a 5 senses check-in is exactly what it sounds like. You can go through all of your senses one by one and just make a note of what you're experiencing with that sense. So you can start with your eyes and like, what am I seeing? Like if you're at the ocean, I see waves. I see, the spray coming off the waves. I see the sand. I see families playing in the sand. I see the sun. I see birds. Just kind of making a note of all of the things you see. And it's not like a test. It's not like you have to do every single one, but it's just checking in with that sense of sight and what things are you experiencing with your sight in that moment. And then you can go to your ears. What are you hearing in that moment? Maybe you hear the waves. Maybe you hear children laughing. Maybe you hear traffic. Maybe you hear, I don't know, cars honking. Maybe you even hear some noises that might feel a little unpleasant, but since we're in this mindful state, we're not labeling things as pleasant or unpleasant. We're just noting what is coming in through our hearing sense. And then you can go through smell. What things are you smelling? Touch. Do you feel like, are you sitting in a beach chair and you can kind of feel your weight in the bottom of the chair? Can you feel your toes in the sand? What are you feeling through touch? And then taste might not be relevant to where you're at, but that's another one that you can do. And so going through, like I said, just checking in with all 5 senses, and it can take just a few minutes, but this is a way, because you're giving your mind something to do. And so that can kind of quiet whatever chatter is going on. But what you're giving it to do is intentionally checking in with the present moment so that you can kind of absorb it all. It's almost like you're taking a Polaroid of that moment, like a mental snapshot of that moment. And this serves two really important purposes. So if you're kind of worrying about something and you want to get out of your mind, you can do it in any setting. Like if you're driving in your car, if you're at work and you want to just get out of your mind, you can do that. But the situations that I find this practice particularly powerful for are when you're in moments that you really want to savor and you really want to be present for, but maybe your mind is just distracting you a little bit.
So that's a beautiful practice that we could apply anywhere we are. When we do that practice, when the mindfulness practice wherever we are, we're not using our imagination. We are actually using our five senses to connect with our environment. And to most, the reality that we dwell within is through the five senses. When we do have a practice to connect with our environment through our five senses from a different perspective, that is a very powerful way to reprogram our subconscious association with your environment and your daily activity. So the mindfulness practice, as Jen just described, connecting through our five senses, becomes a very powerful technique for us to change habits of thinking, habits of thoughts. Thinking and thoughts are two different things. So as we do that on a regular basis, on a consistent basis, we reshape our thoughts and therefore our imaginations and therefore our beliefs. People work the other way around. They try to, from this subtle aspect of our consciousness, the imagination, which is very powerful, and that's a very high level of consciousness, we try to bring it, what we imagine, we try to bring down to our existence, so we could feel it through our five senses. With the practice of mindfulness, we are reverse engineering, if you will, or maybe the imagination could be reverse engineering, that we feel it first through our five senses and apply it to our imagination.
Yeah, that's such a cool way to think about, like it's like as above, so below within our own consciousness. What I wanted to also add is like by doing a five senses check-in and just it's like a portal to the present moment that gives you the opportunity with practice, especially if you're pairing this with a spiritual practice that you are doing, like a Kundalini yoga practice and meditation practice. Then as you check into the present moment with your five senses, you'll start to see signs and feelings and vibrations of your connection to spirit, of that Ekankar we talked about in the Mole Mantra episode, this concept that we are all one. And you can only really experience that feeling of connectedness if you are present in the present moment. And so with habitual practice of like a five senses check-in and a spiritual Kundalini yoga meditation type of practice or prayer, whatever your practice looks like for you, then you really can experience that connection to the divine moment to moment. Even something as simple as washing your hands. Now, all five senses might not be particularly powerful, but if you pay attention when you wash your hands with warm water to the sensations in your hands, like really get in with that sensation of touch, like that can almost feel like a divine sacred ritual as you wash your hands. If you bring that level of awareness and attention to how it feels. And so this practice, I think, is a really powerful, like I said, it can be a first step if you're intimidated by a consistent yoga meditation practice. A mindfulness practice like this can be a good first step, or it can be a way for you to expand what you're doing on the mat or on the cushion into the daily moments of your life.
We are such powerful beings in this sense. When you think about it, such simple activities and way of living, if you will, can bring such profound transitions in our life. This is who we are as human beings. We are multidimensional beings having this capacity to be able to bring these practices and exercises, if you will, into our consciousness. And as we do these simple acts and simple practices, we are able to expand our consciousness and expand our connection to each other and our environment, to Mother Earth, and beyond. Then this is a key thing to speak about is as we do our practice, there is no wrong or right. There is no absolute. Is practicing. That's what we call the practice. Is a way of enhancing ourselves, improving, evolving, and expanding. Is done through practice, and is important to focus on, that the meaning of practice and what it is. If you do it on a daily basis, every day is going to be different. The feeling of it, the energy of it, because we are connected to so much beyond this earth. So it's going to feel differently. Our emotions, our state, our physical state, our emotions, and our mental state, all is going to be different. So we got to continue practice and let go of certain expectations and limitations that we bring through our mental state. That's only one aspect of who we are. So when we do this practice of mindfulness, we are bringing it all to a state of harmony.
Beautifully said. I think that's a perfect place to end this discussion.
So we're going to end this episode, as we always do, with a practice of pranayam. Today I will be leading the pranayam. If you have been listening to our previous episodes, Jen is the one who always does the pranayam. But today I will be doing it. So we're going to do the Sitali pranayam, which is known for cooling the body and the mind. It brings us a calming sensation and can be helpful for focusing and helping reducing any agitation or anger. So if you live in a warmer climate, especially during summertime, this pranayam could be very helpful to reduce the body's temperature. So we simply inhale through the mouth and we exhale through the nose for this pranayam. As you inhale through the mouth, you have your tongue in a U shape or a taco shape, and tip of the tongue is slightly outside of the lips. And if you cannot do a full U shape with your tongue, like I can't, you just roll your tongue up as much as you can in a U shape, or just simply have the tip of the tongue out of the lips slightly and inhale through the mouth. So we'll do the practice for 3 minutes today. Alternatively, you can practice this 26 times in the morning and 26 times in the evening. 108 repetition of this Sitali pranayam will put you in a deep meditative state, and it could be a very powerful healer for the body and the digestive system. Alright, so let's get started. Sitting up straight, keeping the spine straight. You could sit in a chair or on the floor as you're comfortable. I'm going to apply the neck lock here, keeping the chin tucked in and the top of the head flat. You could have your eyes focus at the bridge of the nose as you have your eyes closed, and that will help you keep the head balanced as you have your chin tucked in. So let's start now. Inhaling through the mouth with your tongue in a U shape and slightly out the lips, and exhaling through the nose. And let's begin. bitter taste at the back of the tongue. Eventually, this will become sweet. Continue with the breath, feeling the cooling effect and the calming effect. Keeping the shoulders relaxed, the spine straight, chin tucked in. And now finish the last round. And simply inhale now through the nose. Inhale deep and pause. Hold the breath in. And exhale. Allowing your body to feel the effects. Keeping the mind calm and neutral. Feel the connection between the mind and the body. Allow a sense of joy, contentment, sense of peace within to expand. Satnam.
Satnam, what a beautiful practice. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode. Remember, your inspired action to take is to use that 5 senses check-in. Really check in with all 5 senses when you're in a situation that you really want to remember. You want to take that mental snapshot and really be present and enjoy the moment. Give it a try and let us know how it goes for you. Another thing I want to remind you about is that Ramtin offers amazing spiritual counseling sessions. If you're looking for help, if you're struggling with something like stress or like you're just trying to reach a goal in your life or overcome a challenge and you feel stuck, even just a few spiritual counseling sessions can really give you the tools to break through that feeling of being stuck. Ramtin combines hypnotherapy, Kundalini yoga and meditation, behavioral therapy, just to really help you get clear on what your goals are, what the barriers are, and how some subconscious programming might be creating resistance for you that you don't quite understand. So if you're interested in learning more about that, you can visit heartcenteredrevolution.com/spiritual counseling, and you can see the different options there. I'll also put that link and the link to Thich Nhat Hanh's books in the episode description for this episode. Satnam, we love you so much, and don't forget to be revolutionary. Bye.